The captain's voice cracked through the cabin speakers like a gunshot in the dark. This is not a drill. If there is any fighter pilot on board, identify yourself now. And before you blink or scroll away, listen closely because stories like this don't just entertain. They remind us who the real heroes are. So if you believe in hidden courage, impossible odds, and moments that separate legends from passengers, hit subscribe right now and stay with us. Because what happened next at 37,000 feet over the Atlantic shocked the entire United States when a black woman everyone ignored woke up and changed everything. And it all began when Flight 918 left JFK on a calm Tuesday night. The kind of flight where businessmen loosen ties, families argue softly, and strangers pretend not to exist. And in seat 24 sat a woman wrapped in a gray hoodie, noise-canceling headphones on, head tilted toward the window, asleep before takeoff. Her name was Captain Maya Reynolds, though nobody on that plane knew it yet. Not the flight attendants who passed her without eye contact. Not the man beside her who sighed when she boarded last. Not even the off-duty police officer across the aisle who mentally categorized her as no relevance. Because America has taught people how to overlook black women quietly and efficiently, and as the plane leveled out, everything felt routine until 40 minutes later when the cockpit lights flashed amber then red. A warning no commercial pilot wants to see. Radar anomaly moving fast, too fast. Approaching from behind without a transponder, military speed, military silence, and the captain's hands tightened as air traffic control crackled uselessly, unable to identify the aircraft, unable to explain why a non-communicating object was shadowing a civilian plane. And then the first jolt hit, subtle but wrong, like the sky had flinched, and murmurs rippled through the cabin as flight attendants exchanged glances trained to stay calm but not trained to lie to themselves, and in the cockpit the co-pilot whispered the word every pilot fears: intercept. Because intercepts are supposed to be coordinated, announced, controlled, not silent and aggressive. And then a second jolt came harder, the plane shuddering as if brushed by an invisible fist, oxygen masks threatening to deploy, and finally the captain made the call no airline manual truly prepares you for, broadcasting over the cabin speakers in a voice already fighting panic. If there is any fighter pilot on board, active or former, please identify yourself immediately. And the cabin exploded into chaos, people standing, shouting, praying, filming, but not Maya, because Maya slept through the first announcement, her body trained by years of combat sorties to sleep anywhere, anytime until turbulence means danger. And when the third violent drop slammed her awake, her eyes opened sharp and alert, scanning exits, angles, behaviors, her breathing already controlled. And she pulled off her headphones just as the captain's terrified voice repeated the request. And for a moment she stayed seated, because experience had taught her that stepping forward as a black woman in a crisis often brings skepticism before salvation. But then she heard something else through the hull of the plane, something civilians would never recognize, a frequency vibration, a harmonic whine that screamed afterburner modulation, and she knew instantly that this was no routine intercept. This was either a rogue military asset or something far worse, and Maya Reynolds had not flown F-22s for 15 years to stay quiet now. So she stood, aisle lights trembling, faces turning, eyes judging, and she spoke calmly to the nearest attendant. "I need to see the captain now." And the attendant hesitated, eyes flicking over hoodie, sneakers, skin color, doubt written plainly, and said, "Ma'am, please return to your seat." And that moment could have been the end if Maya hadn't done what combat taught her. She reached into her carry-on and pulled out a worn leather ID wallet, flipped it open once, just once, revealing wings, rank, call sign etched in metal, and the attendant's face drained of color, because you can't fake that kind of weight. And suddenly hands were clearing the aisle, radios crackling, and Maya was being rushed forward while passengers whispered, "Is she really a pilot?" And, "She doesn't look like one," and she almost smiled at that, because none of the men she'd outflown ever thought she looked like one either. And in the cockpit the captain spun when she entered, desperation and disbelief colliding when he saw her. But she didn't wait for permission. She asked 3 rapid-fire questions about heading, altitude, radar returns, and engine response. And when he answered, she closed her eyes briefly, mapping vectors in her mind like muscle memory waking from hibernation. Because she knew this pattern. She'd seen it once before over classified airspace, a drone modified with autonomous aggression protocols, something that shouldn't exist outside black projects. and the captain admitted the truth that moments before the unidentified craft had pinged them with targeting radar, not locking on but testing like a predator circling prey, and Maya felt a chill colder than the cabin air because that meant whoever or whatever controlled it wanted a reaction, wanted fear, and she told the captain calmly that their best chance was to stop behaving like a civilian aircraft and start thinking tactically, advising subtle altitude shifts, irregular speed modulation, moves that confused targeting algorithms, and as he followed her instructions the plane steadied slightly but not enough because suddenly the aircraft surged forward unnaturally, closing distance, and a metallic screech reverberated through the fuselage as something scraped the tail, passengers screaming now openly, oxygen masks dropping, chaos complete, and the captain shouted that the stabilizer was compromised. They were losing control, and that's when Maya did the unthinkable. She asked if there was an auxiliary manual override accessible through the avionics bay. /session access designed for test pilots only, something commercial crews are barely trained on, and the co-pilot stared at her, stunned, because yes there was, but it required precise input under pressure, and Maya cracked her knuckles slightly, heart steady, mind razor sharp, because pressure was home, and as alarms blared she guided the captain through a sequence no civilian sim ever teaches, dumping false telemetry, mimicking debris signature, making the plane appear damaged beyond pursuit value, and for a brief terrifying moment the aircraft went silent, engines throttled low, lights dimmed, people thought they were dying. But then the radar contact hesitated, drifted, recalculated, and peeled away, vanishing into the dark like a ghost that decided the meal wasn't worth it. And just like that the sky was quiet again, and only then did Maya's hands start to shake slightly, adrenaline finally loosening its grip, and the captain slumped back, tears welling as he realized everyone was alive, and behind the cockpit door the cabin was a mosaic of crying strangers who had no idea that the woman they'd ignored had just outflown a nightmare. And when the plane made an emergency landing in Virginia under heavy military escort, officials swarmed, questions flew, and a general himself approached Maya on the tarmac, saluted her sharply and said quietly, "We thought you retired," and she replied just as quietly, "I did." And that might have been the end, a classified incident buried in reports, if not for the fact that one passenger had filmed the captain's announcement, another had filmed Maya walking forward, and by morning the video had gone viral across America with headlines screaming, "Who was the woman who saved Flight 918? And suddenly the same country that had slept on her was waking up, debating, celebrating, questioning, because it challenged every stereotype neatly packed into people's minds. And when Maya finally spoke publicly days later, she didn't talk about heroism or fear. She talked about training, preparedness, and how many capable people are overlooked every day because they don't match expectations. And the story became bigger than aviation. It became about who we trust, who we ignore, and who we underestimate. And if you're still listening now, remember this: somewhere on your next flight, in your next meeting, in your next crisis, the person who saves everything might not look like what you imagined. And that's why stories like this matter, why you should subscribe, stay curious, and never scroll past the quiet ones, because sometimes the hero is already there, just waiting to be asked.